Let's travel back in time, way back, thousands of years. Imagine a world without modern technology, where people found joy in simpler things. One of those joys was playing ball games. People have always loved playing games with balls. From the youngest children to the oldest adults, ball games have been a universal source of fun and competition. Ancient civilizations, like really old groups of people, played all sorts of ball games. These games were not just for fun. They were often part of important cultural rituals and community gatherings. They kicked them, carried them, and even passed them to each other. These activities helped build teamwork and physical fitness, which were crucial for survival in those times. In ancient China, they had a game called Cuju. This game was not only a pastime, but also a way to train soldiers and improve their coordination and agility. Two teams would kick a leather ball filled with feathers, trying to get it into a net. The game required skill, strategy, and teamwork, much like modern soccer. We know people played Cuju as far back as the Han Dynasty. That's super old. This shows how long-lasting and influential these games were in ancient societies. The ancient Greeks played Episkiros. This game was a blend of physical prowess and strategic thinking, reflecting the Greek admiration for both mind and body. It was a rough game where you used your hands and feet to move the ball. The physicality of the game was intense, and it was often played during festivals and celebrations. And across the Mediterranean Sea, the Romans played Harpastum. This game was highly competitive and required a lot of stamina and strength. This was a really competitive game with a small, hard ball. It was so intense that it was used as a training exercise for Roman soldiers. Roman soldiers played it to stay in shape and have fun. The game helped them build endurance, strength, and tactical skills, which were essential for their military duties. All these games show that people have always loved playing with balls. Whether for fun, fitness, or training, ball games have been a beloved part of human culture for millennia. In the Middle Ages in Europe, a new kind of ball game became popular: mob football. This wasn't your typical organized sport with rules and referees. Instead, it was a chaotic and often unruly event that brought entire communities together in a frenzy of excitement and physicality. It was a wild and crazy game, sometimes even violent. The matches could get so intense that injuries were common, and it wasn't unusual for the game to spill into the streets, causing mayhem. Huge groups of people from different villages would play against each other. These matches were not just about winning, they were about community pride and camaraderie. The entire village would come out to support their team, creating a festive atmosphere. It was like a giant free-for-all, everyone trying to get the ball. There were no boundaries, and the game could stretch across fields, streets, and even rivers. The objective was simple: get the ball to a predetermined spot by any means necessary. These games weren't really about skill or planning. There were no set plays or strategies. Instead, it was a test of endurance, strength, and sheer willpower. Players would often find themselves in the middle of a chaotic scrum, pushing and shoving to gain control of the ball. It was more about being strong and never giving up. The physicality of the game was unmatched, and it required players to be tough and resilient. Those who could withstand the rough-and-tumble nature of mob football earned respect and admiration from their peers. Matches often happened on holidays and could go on for hours. These events were a highlight of the year, providing a much-needed break from the daily grind. People would gather to watch, cheer, and sometimes even join in the action. Players would carry, kick, and throw the ball across fields, streets, and even rivers. The unpredictable nature of the game made it exciting and kept everyone on their toes. You never knew what would happen next or where the ball would end up. Even though it was chaotic, mob football was a lot of fun and a way for people to let loose. It was a chance to forget about their worries and enjoy a day of spirited competition and camaraderie. The laughter and cheers of the crowd added to the festive atmosphere. But the rich people and the leaders didn't like it because it was so unruly. They saw it as a threat to order and discipline, and they worried about the potential for injury and property damage. They tried to ban it, but people kept playing it for hundreds of years. Despite numerous attempts to outlaw the game, the passion for mob football couldn't be extinguished. It was a beloved tradition that endured through the ages. It wasn't like football today, but mob football kept the love of ball games alive. The spirit of competition and the joy of playing with a ball have been passed down through generations, evolving into the organized sports we know and love today. Modern football, the kind we know today, started in the schools of England in the 1800s. These schools made the rules and decided how the game would be played. One important person was William Webb Ellis. He was a student at rugby school, and he supposedly picked up the ball and ran with it during a game. People think this may be how rugby started. As football became more popular, different schools had their own versions of the rules. Some schools let players carry the ball, others mostly kicked it. This is how rugby and soccer became different sports. Even though they were different, these school football games all had some things in common. They used big fields, had goals at each end, and teams of 11 players. The goal was to get the ball into the other team's goal. These basic parts became the foundation of modern football. The year 1863 was a super important year for football. That's when the Football Association, or the FA, was created in England. Football was becoming really popular, and people needed the same rules everywhere. 12 clubs and schools from London met to create the FA and make the official rules of soccer. This meeting was a big deal. They decided how big and heavy the ball should be, how big the field should be, and how many players should be on each team. One big decision was to say no carrying the ball. This is what really made soccer different from rugby. Now, passing, dribbling, and teamwork became much more important. Thanks to the FA, we have professional leagues, international games, and the worldwide sport we know and love. Football wasn't a messy game anymore, it was a real sport with clear rules. Even after the rules of football were written down in 1863, soccer and rugby were still kind of mixed up. The early days of football were a time of experimentation and evolution. Clubs and schools across England were trying to figure out the best way to play the game. Some preferred the dribbling and kicking style that would become soccer, while others enjoyed the physicality and ball-carrying aspects that would evolve into rugby. For a while, both sports existed together, often played side by side in the same communities. It wasn't uncommon to see a match where the rules would change halfway through, depending on who was playing. This period of overlap was crucial in shaping the identities of both sports. Some clubs followed the FA's rules, which emphasized kicking and dribbling, while others still played like rugby, focusing on carrying the ball and tackling. This division was the beginning of a more formal separation between the two sports. The rule about not carrying the ball in soccer made a big difference. It shifted the focus to footwork, passing, and strategy. This change was pivotal in defining soccer as a game of skill and finesse rather than brute strength. This is why the two sports started to become more different. Soccer became more about teamwork and precision, while rugby embraced its rough-and-tumble nature, appealing to those who enjoyed a more physical challenge. Rugby, where you can carry the ball and tackle, was for people who liked a rougher game. The physicality of rugby attracted players who enjoyed the contact and the strategic depth that came with it. The group in charge of rugby, the Rugby Union, was formed in 1871. This organization helped standardize the rules and promote the sport, ensuring that rugby would continue to grow and develop independently from soccer. Soccer became a game of skill, strategy, and teamwork, all about using your feet and controlling the ball. The emphasis on dribbling, passing, and shooting made it a sport that required not just physical ability but also mental acuity and tactical awareness. Soccer and rugby splitting up was a big moment in football history. This separation allowed each sport to develop its own unique identity, rules, and culture, attracting different types of players and fans. Now, they were two separate sports with different rules, styles, and fans. Soccer became the world's game, known for its global appeal and simplicity, while rugby carved out its niche as a sport of strength, strategy, and camaraderie. They both came from the same place, but they became very different ways to play and compete. Each sport has its own rich history and tradition, and both continue to captivate audiences around the world with their unique styles and thrilling gameplay. While football was changing in England, a different kind of football was becoming popular in the United States. American football came from rugby, keeping the carrying and tackling. Soccer also came to America, brought over by people moving there from other countries. The first soccer game in the US that we know about happened in 1869 between Princeton and Rutgers universities. At first, soccer was mostly played in colleges and by groups of immigrants. Things changed in 1884 when the American Football Association was created. It was hard to get all the different leagues and clubs to agree, but soccer kept growing. In the early 1900s, professional soccer leagues started, but they weren't as popular as baseball and American football. But people still loved playing soccer, and this helped it become more popular later on. Across the sea in Europe, football was becoming popular in other countries too. Germany really loved football and it quickly became super popular there. Two school teachers, Konrad Koch and August Hermann, brought football to Germany. In 1874, Koch started teaching football to his students, using a version of the FA's rules. Hermann did the same thing with his students in Lüneburg. Both teachers thought football was a good way to teach teamwork, discipline, and how to be healthy and strong. Football became popular really fast in German schools, and clubs started forming all over the country. In 1900, the German Football Association, the DFB, was created. This brought all the different groups together and helped create a national league. Now football was a really big deal in Germany. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, football started to become professional. This meant people could get paid to play. The English Football League started in 1888, and this changed everything. Other countries started their own professional leagues, and then international competitions began. The first FIFA World Cup was in Uruguay in 1930, and people all over the world watched it. It showed everyone how popular and exciting football could be. Radio and television helped make football even more popular. It wasn't just a game anymore, it was something everyone could enjoy together. Becoming a professional sport and being played all over the world created new opportunities and challenges for football. Even with these challenges, football became more and more popular, becoming the world's favorite sport. Today, football is a great example of how sports can bring people together. From the streets of Rio de Janeiro to the fancy stadiums in England, everyone loves football. It's a simple game that doesn't need a lot of equipment, and that's why it's played everywhere. Kids all over the world kick around whatever they can find, dreaming of becoming famous players. Football is important not just on the field, but it inspires books, movies, and music. It's also helped make the world a better place by teaching people to accept and understand each other. Football's greatest gift is its ability to bring people together, creating a sense of community and shared love for the game. From its simple beginnings to its place as a worldwide spectacle, football continues to amaze and inspire us all. In the comments below.